Hi, I'm Josh Curving, and welcome to another Death Battle prediction video. But first, we have Archie Silver versus Trunks. This is one of those ones that I kind of went in, and I wasn't. I'm not necessarily that interested in either Dragon Ball or Sonic as much, I find. So I did kind of go into this one mostly going with what a lot of other people were saying. And ultimately, I kind of agree with the death battle in this regard. I don't think it's necessarily like people have been really going in on this one. There is actually one aspect that we probably should talk about, but I think it was fairly well explained. The animation was actually really good too, and is ultimately the kill was also very good. The music, but the elephant in the room for this fight is basically what started happening on Twitter after it came out. Apparently, some folks essentially got Ian Flynn, the writer for Archie, and asked his opinion on the death battle, and it caused a fairly large kerfuffle because people are interpreting what he said as saying, oh, the death battle is wrong. But that is ultimately not what he said. And there are several other caveats with that, too. So the first thing that is very important to mention is that, one, Ian Flynn is probably not familiar with death battle nor its rules. What he said in his tweet was basically that Trunks' powers are innate to him, while he said, if you have to give Silver the Chaos Emeralds and the Time Stone, then it's not fair. Which is basically a fancy way of saying, in base, Silver loses, which even the death battle itself said that. So that's not anything new. People were saying that that means that he doesn't agree with the overall outcome of the fight, which overall, hilariously enough, he more or less does, because there was actually a tweet later on when someone else was basically pointing at him saying that against Death Battle, where he actually said that he understands what Death Battle does a bit more, and that he doesn't like the fact that people started using him to essentially weaponize his statement against the show, as if it's some big gotcha moment. So the other aspect of it that definitely is important to this is that with how Death Battle includes everything that the characters have to make it so that it's them at their prime, you will get situations where a character is stronger than they would otherwise be on a standard basis in their own series. These are ultimately idealized versions of the characters. There isn't really going to be many times in a character series where they're firing on all cylinders and actually fighting at the levels that a lot of versus debating portrays them at. No, you're not going to see Batman characters, people on Batman's level, going around punching skyscrapers. But it is what their idealized highest end feats come out to, and that's kind of one of the things that people have to remember that too. But that's not inherently obvious to people who aren't in this community. It's not even obvious to people who are in this community. So that's kind of a big thing with this one. The overall takeaway from this is leave the fucking creators alone. God. People who bother the creators of series for essentially ammunition in versus debates, God, those people gotta fuck off real bad. They don't versus debate. They're not going to get the same enjoyment out of it that a lot of other people would. We've had a couple times where a creator has said that they've enjoyed a death battle, or even, in the example of a certain person, appeared on a death battle cast with them and talked about it. But it's not an inherent thing that people are going to want to see, and are especially not going to want to be dragged into. So leave them alone. Which brings us to the next fight. Essentially the joke fight of the season, probably. SpongeBob SquarePants versus Superfriends Aquaman. Yeah, this one doesn't really require very much to go into. For the most part, it's basically a complete and utter wash in, weirdly enough, SpongeBob's favor. He doesn't... People always bring up the string, but I don't even think he necessarily needs the string. He's got way higher feats than that already. And we're literally talking about, like, the weakest incarnation of Aquaman that has ever existed. I just don't see there really being much to talk about here. It's just a total wash in SpongeBob's favor. Like, massively faster than light, scaling to Patrick, who ran to the sun and back in like 8 seconds or something. And, like, he's become the moon by absorbing water. And, of course, that time where he unraveled the universe with a piece of string. Theoretically, you can actually get some speed calculations on how fast he did it, even if you don't necessarily buy the string feat as a strength feat. You could argue that it shouldn't count for strength because it's relying on a structural instability. It's like, basically, if there's like a tank that's being held together by a screw, and you take the screw out and the tank falls apart, you didn't punch the tank and explode it. You took out one thing that caused it to collapse. But the speed thing still stands, so... ultimately, I'm not feeling this upcoming fight very much. So, yeah, I'm just gonna put my hat in SpongeBob's court. It seems pretty clear-cut. I'd be surprised if Aquaman pulled out a win. Which brings us to the hilarious thing where people were always waiting for DC to lose to a series that was not Marvel. And in one season, we got both League of Legends and SpongeBob SquarePants to beat DC characters. That feels wrong. That's all I've really got to say for this one. I saw the preview. The preview looks pretty solid. The voice it's like 95% there, but with a character as memorable for his voice as SpongeBob is. That 5% is really standing out, and it's kind of like... It feels weird, but he's still doing a good job. It looks good. We'll see you guys for the next one, which will probably be Jason versus Michael Myers. I will laugh if it is not, because so many people are banking so hard on that one. I will see you guys then. Have a good one.